Okay, so here we are, our O-level biology class. In the last class, we have studied about the structure of the heart. Um, Wait, you can see me, right? Okay, so in the last class, we have studied about the structure of the heart, and um, we have seen that the four chambers are there inside the heart, and then the direction of blood flow from inside the heart, and then the arteries, the veins, the atrium, the ventricles. Okay, all right. Now I think we might have a short review in this case. Okay, so okay, this is the heart. For example, these are the four chambers. This is okay. No, not this. Okay. Okay, so the transport system is like this. Now look at the left side of the heart. Okay, uh, look, so this is the left side of the heart, and this is the right side of the heart. Okay, all right. So this chamber is the atrium, and this chamber is the ventricle. Okay, this chamber is the atrium, this chamber is the ventricle. Okay, so ventricle, this is the ventricle. So this attached blood, the attached blood vessel with the ventricle, it must be artery, and this is atrium. So the attached blood vessel must be vein. Okay. Okay. So so this is this side. Okay, sorry. This is the atrium. So this is the vein. We have learned about that it's all AV, and this is the vein. So this must be the sorry, this is the ventricle, and so this must be the artery or A. All right. Okay. Now look, the the blood vessels attached with the right side of the heart are given blue colors. That means the blood vessels attached with the right side, they all contain deoxygenated blood. That means the blood in the right side do not have any oxygen. Okay. Now look at the blood vessels of the left side of the heart. The left side of the heart, the blood vessels are red colored. That means they are all the blood inside these vessels are all oxygenated. Okay, all right. Now we have got to know the connections. Okay, connections. Okay, so this is the ventricle. So this is the artery. The artery in the right side goes to the lungs, and the vein in the right side comes from the body. Okay, so this artery is attached with the lungs, artery with the lungs, and vein from the body, and artery with the lungs in the right side. Okay, so in the right side, the artery is with the lung and vein is with the body, and so in the left side the opposite thing. Okay, the artery will be with the body and vein will be with the lungs. So I prefer that you remember that what is present in the right side. Okay, all right. Now let's go into some more details. So this is the overall summary of our last class. So today we are going to learn about different connections and some more structure present inside the heart and different structures of arteries, veins, and then what's going on. Okay, so let's first complete the structure of heart. Okay, so heart, now inside the heart, inside the heart, okay, so this is the heart. Now let me zoom it. Okay, so look, so so this is the atrium and this is the ventricle, and between the atrium and the ventricle, this part is what we are calling it as the valve, or more appropriately we call it the atrioventricular valves. Okay, the atrioventricular valves. The atrioventricular means between the atrium and the ventricle. Now what is a valve? A valve is simply a door that allows something to flow in one direction only. All right. Now, look here. When the part of atrium contracts, then blood flows from the atrium to the ventricle. All right. Blood flows from the atrium to the ventricle, and the valve opens. Okay, since there is a sideways pressure on the valve, and the valve then opens. Okay, but when the ventricle contracts, then due to contraction of the ventricle, the blood tries to flow in upward direction, and it might get returned into the atrium. But look, this actually does not happen. The blood does not return to the atrium. Why? The blood does not return to the atrium. Why? Because when the ventricle contracts and the blood starts to flow up, it creates a sideways force on the valve. Sorry, it creates a sideways force on the valve while flowing upward, and this valve then closes. Okay, so the valve closes and the blood cannot flow back into the atrium. And what happens? Since the blood cannot flow back into the atrium, then it passes then it goes straight from the ventricle to the outside from the artery. Okay, this the same thing this is the same thing that happens in the left side of the heart also. Okay, now let's clear the screen. Okay, so there is the valve in the right side of the heart, as well as there is a valve in the left side of the heart. I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay, so uh, these are the two valves present between the atrium and the ventricle, but you must also, okay, so these valves are called the atrioventricular valves. Okay, but you must also keep in mind that since, okay, this is the ventricle, so this is the artery. All right, this is the artery, this is the ventricle, so this is the artery. Okay, so now inside the artery, inside the arteries of the heart present, there are also valves present. Okay, I think I should, okay, there are also valves present inside the arteries. That means when the blood flows through the arteries, they force, they they pass by forcing the valves, and the valve then opens, and blood is then allowed to go out. But if unfortunately the blood tries to return in, then this valve immediately closes, so that the valve cannot go, so the valve cannot get back into the ventricle. Okay, the same type of valve is also present in the left side of the heart also. Okay, these valves, they actually look like half the moon, so they are called the semi-lunar valve. Semi means half and lunar means moon. Okay, we will go for some specific names later on. Okay, now um, okay, now that um, let's see what happens inside an organ after after the blood that comes out of the heart through the arteries, then it goes into organ, and then what happens. Okay, let's see. So we know that at the right side of the heart, the vein is attached with the body, vein is attached with the body or the body cavity, and the artery is attached with the lungs. Okay, and in the left side, the opposite thing, the artery is attached with the body or the body cavity, and the vein is attached with the lungs. Okay, so after the blood, after the blood comes out of the artery of the left side, then what happens? The blood goes to various other organs of the body. The blood goes to various other organs of the body and then enters the organs. Then what happens? Let's see. When the blood enters the organs, then what happens? Okay. For example, consider this is an organ that consists of some few cells. All right? Okay. It's very short. Okay, so this is an organ that consists of some cells, like look here. Okay, all right. Now what happens is that imagine that uh, blood is entering the organ, blood is entering the organ through this blood vessel, which we are calling it as the artery. Then what happens is that next what happens is that the artery then divides, the artery then divides into smaller arteries, which we call the arterioles. Okay, then what happens? Now these arterioles further subdivide into more smaller vessels like this. Okay, and then these smaller vessels passes all the cells, it goes through the cells like this. Okay, these vessels then goes through the cells, then goes not actually through, goes across the cells or surrounding the cells, and these very smaller blood vessels and then these very smaller blood vessels, we call them capillary. Capillary, capillary. The smaller blood vessels that passes from the side of the cells, we call them capillary. Okay, all right. And if this is the artery, I'm just writing art. So artery first subdivides into what we call arterial. This is artery. So this is arterial, and then we get the capillary. Now what happens is that the artery contains the artery contains the oxygenated blood. So uh, these arteries are now the capillaries are now delivering oxygenated blood to the cells. Okay, so they are now delivering oxygenated blood to the cells, and then what's happening is that they are collecting the carbon dioxide from the cells and other waste materials from the cells. All right, so then what's going on is that since the blood is giving oxygen to the cells and collecting carbon dioxide from the cells, so that means sorry so that means I will make it blue colored, isn't it? Blue colored means they are now filled with carbon dioxide and they have given all the oxygen. Okay, then what happens is that these capillaries then join up to form smaller vessels called venules. Okay, here it sorry so here it was arterial, so these are the arterioles, and here they are the venules. Okay, then the venules join together to form what we call is the large vein. Okay, so what is the sequence? The sequence is first the artery, then the arterial, then the capillary, then what is that the sorry the venule, and then what we have, it is the vein. Okay, so artery takes the blood into the organ and then divides into arterioles, then the arterioles further subdivides into capillaries, and the reason for this is that the blood has to be taken so near to the cells, but the cells are really very small. So if you want to take the blood close to the cells, you have to make the blood vessels extremely small or extremely minute or fine, so that that blood vessel can enter or pierce to the cells, isn't it? So that's why the arterioles are further subdivided into very smaller capillaries, that can get really very close to the cells. Okay, so there's what we have: the artery, the arterial, the capillary, the venule, and the vein. Okay, now let's get into the structure of the artery, the vein, and the venules, the capillary, etc. Okay. First of all, let's get started from the structure of artery, and let's have a look at a comparison. Okay. So artery has got a very thick wall, and artery has got a very thick walls and also inner walls with a very small amount of space remaining inside. I'm coloring the space as yellow. So very small amount of space remains inside, which we are calling it as the lumen. Okay. So artery walls are very thick. Okay, now what about the capillary? Capillary is always the thinnest. Okay. So capillary has got a very thin wall, which is about just the diameter or thickness of a single cell. Okay. So the thickness of the wall of an artery is just a single cell. Okay. All right. Now, so capillaries are just one cell thick. Now what about vein? Is vein also one cell thick? No, not at all. Vein is not one cell thick. Instead, vein vein is not actually one cell thick. Instead, it has got like thickness of this. Okay. Oh, let me color it blue. So it has got thickness like this. Okay. So this is not one cell thick, but this is thinner than this is not one cell thick, but this is thinner than artery. This is arterial, right? So the wall of the vein is thinner than that of artery, and its inner layer it's also thin. So what we are left with is that there is a lot of space inside the vein. I'm coloring it yellow. There's a lot of space inside the vein, and this space is what we call the lumen. Okay. So artery has got a very thick wall. So artery has got a very thick wall. Okay. And very small lumen. Capillary has a small lumen and a wall which is just one cell thick. Vein has got a wall, but that is not one cell thick, but the thickness is less than artery, and its inner walls are also thin, and it has got a large space. Okay. So just note down these things. We will get to know later that why is this, why is the artery walls are such thick and with a small space, but vein walls are thin with a large amount of space. Okay. And why is capillary one cell thick? Okay. So let's start from the part of the heart again. Let's begin. Okay. So look, just imagine that this is the heart and this is the liver. Okay, let me change the color. This is the liver, this is the kidney, this is the pancreas, this is the stomach, and these are the intestines. Okay, for example. So when the heart is pumping blood out of the left side of the heart, the blood has to go at several different organs, isn't it? The blood has to go from the right side, from the left side of the heart to the several different organs, isn't it? Okay, so what do you think? Will heart enforce the blood with a small force or a with small pressure or a very great pressure? Obviously, the heart will enforce or apply a very large pressure on the blood so that the blood gets enough velocity to be distributed all around the body. Okay, so blood, okay, all around the body. That means the left ventricle applies a lot of pressure, a very high pressure on the blood, so the blood gets distributed to all parts of the body at an instant. That means the artery which is the artery which is taking out the blood out of the heart has to tolerate a high pressure. Now imagine if this artery have a very thin wall that would make it very weak. So now if blood gets into that thin walled artery at a very high pressure, there is a huge possibility that the artery wall might get tear off. It would be damaged and it would be displaced from its position and it would be destroyed by the high pressure of the blood, isn't it? So that's why artery walls are made very thick so that they can tolerate the high pressure. So blood is flowing through the artery at a very high pressure in a wave like manner, isn't it? In a wave like manner. So the it actually does not need the involvement of any valve inside the arteries because the blood is flowing at a very high velocity in the artery with a with a large blood pressure. So there is very little or actually no chance of blood getting back into the heart. So that's why artery inside does not contain any valve. Okay, inside does not contain any valve. Okay, all right. So now you know that why artery walls are very thick. Okay. Second question is that why capillary walls are just one celled thick. Okay. The capillary walls, for example, if this is a capillary and I zoom one part of it, it would look like this. This is a cell. This is a cell. This is a cell. The cells are called endothelial cells. Endothelium. Thelium means layer. Endo means inside. So endothelium means inside layer cells. Epi means up or top. So epithelial means top layer and endothelial means inner layer. Okay. So look, the capillary walls are just one cell thick. All right. They're just one cell thick. So suppose this is a body cell and imagine this is a capillary. Now blood is going from inside the capillary. Okay, all right. Blood is going from inside the capillary. Blood is going. So this blood, it contains oxygen, isn't it? And this oxygen has to go to the body cells, isn't it? Now if capillary walls are very thick just like artery, then it would take a lot of time for the oxygen molecule to pass from the blood vessel into the body cell, to pass from the blood vessel into the body cell. Okay, so but our cells are always very much active and they need a lot of oxygen for survival, for which the capillaries are one cell thick and there is a lot of space between the cells so that material exchange becomes very easy. All right, okay, so the material exchange becomes very easy. So capillary cells are just one cell thick, and capillary cells are just one cell thick, and there is space we call the inter intercellular space between the intercellular space between the endothelial cells of the capillary, so that material exchange can easily occur. Okay, so oxygen can get from here to here, then carbon dioxide from here to here. Okay, now why is the vein thin? Okay, why is the vein so much thin? First of all, okay, not today. I will discuss about the thickness of the vein later, and we will have some more contents in our later classes. Okay, that's all for today. I hope you will understand all the contents, and still, if you have any problem, please inform me by commenting in the comment section below this video, and I will try to solve it individually one by one. Okay, thank you.